بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله النبي الكريم. We continue on with our fiqh class, and previously we discussed about wudu, everything about related to wudu. We discussed the fara'id of wudu, we discussed the sunan of wudu, we discussed also the breakers of wudu, those things that nullify wudu. And so now today we'll try to cover the entire ghusl today, inshallah. It's a bit lengthy, but we'll try to cover it, inshallah, in the time that we have. So Imam Quduri, he mentions وَفَرْضُ الْغُسْلِ كَالْمَضْمَضَ وَالْإِسْتِنْشَاقِ وَغَسْلُ سَائِرِ الْبَدَنِ. So the fara'id of ghusl are three, right? According to our madhab, we say that there are three fara'id. The first fard is gargling. The second fard is putting water into your nostrils, and it should reach, I'll explain. And the third is washing the entire body once. Okay, so gargling, it's not necessary for the water to reach your throat. You know, it's not necessary to actually do the gargling, but rather it's just rinsing of the mouth. Okay, so for example, when you're fasting, you should not be doing gargling. The water should not reach your throat, right? So that's the definition of gargling, which is just rinsing in your mouth. The second is putting water into your nostrils, which should reach just around the bony area of your nose. It should not go beyond that, because if it does, then if you're fasting, it may go inside and go down your throat, and so therefore that will break the fast. So therefore, that's that. And the third is to wash the entire body. Washing the entire body means every single limb, every single inch of the body must be washed, right? Whatever, if someone is wearing nail polish, if someone has some paint which is covering some part of their body, that does not allow the ghusl to be complete. Okay, so if anything is causing a layer to be formed above the body, and you're able to remove that, then you must remove it before you do the ghusl. Yes, obviously, if someone has, like, for example, tattoos or something which is irremovable, then that's okay. Then they should just wash the remainder of their body and over that area. Okay, so doing it once is fard. Each one of these once is fard. Then he goes on to discuss the sunan. He says, وَسُنَّةُ الْغُسْلِ أَن يَبْدَأَ الْمُغْتَسِلُ بِغَسْلِ يَدَيْهِ وَفَرَجِهِ وَيُزِيلُ. Okay, so the first is to wash your hands and the private area, right? So meaning you should wash your hands and then make sure that the private area is clean that way, because generally, especially at that time, they didn't have access to so much water, right? So therefore, they would, the advice was that you should clean the areas where there'll be more najasa. You should clean that area first, right? وَيُزِيلُ النَّجَاسَ إِنْ كَانَتْ عَلَى بَدَنِهِ. You should remove any impurities if there are any on his body, right? So as much as possible, remove all of the impurities first and then move on with the ghusl. So that's the first step. Second step, ثُمَّ يَتَوَضَّأْ وُضُوءَهُ لِلصَّلَاةِ إِلَّا غَسْلَ رِجْلَيْهِ. Now this is sunnah, by the way, right? That the second sunnah is that you should do wudu, the same wudu that you would do for salah, except for washing the feet. So you should wash the remainder of meaning your face, your arms, everything else, right? This is the sunnah actions of wudu, or of ghusl, right? The third is ثُمَّ يُفِيضُ الْمَاءَ عَلَى رَأْسِهِ وَسَائِرِ بَدَنِهِ ثَلَاثًا. Thereafter, you wash your entire body 3 times, right? You rinse your entire body 3 times. This is sunnah. ثُمَّ يَتَنَحَّى عَنْ ذَلِكَ الْمَكَانِ فَيَغْسِلُ رِجْلَيْهِ. Thereafter, the person should move from his spot and then wash his feet, right? The reason being is oftentimes, especially, maybe if the bathtub is clogged, for example, the water, it starts clogging and the water gathers around the feet, and so therefore that area is not cleaned by fresh water. So therefore you would move away from that and then clean and wash your feet. But obviously in our time, generally your feet are washed. Generally the water does go through the bathtub, and generally you don't face those issues as well. And also regarding the other sunan, all the things that we mentioned regarding the sunnahs of wudu, they're also the sunnahs of ghusl. And all the things that we mentioned regarding those things which are makruh in wudu are also makruh in ghusl as well. So just bearing in mind, whatever we discussed previously, we're building on it. Thereafter, he says that, so for example, just to reiterate just briefly, intention, right? You should make the intention before you do ghusl. According to us, intention is not necessary. As we mentioned, intention according to us is option. It's sunnah. It's something good to do, but you're not required to do it. Right? And intention generally you should do in your minds. Also, you should say Bismillah. You should take the name of Allah Ta'ala before showering as well. Right? And as I mentioned, if you have not entered the bathroom yet, then you should do it outside of the bathroom. You should say Bismillah before the bathroom. And if you have entered the bathroom, then you should say it in your heart. You should say Bismillah in your heart. Any questions so far? Okay. وليس على المرأة أن تنقض ضفائرها في الغسل إذا بلغ الماء أصول الشعر. So specifically related to the woman, they're not required to open the braids, right? So women sometimes they have braids, right? And so therefore they're not required to open the braids so long as the water reaches the roots of their hair. This does not apply to men. This does not apply to men. This only applies to women. Because of the hadith, because of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he told us. Therefore, it's specific to the women. So women, they're not required to open their braids, but men must open their braids, because if a person keeps their hair braided, generally the water will not reach every single follicle of hair. And so therefore, they must open their braids. I know that may be difficult for many, but that's just how the rule is. Okay, so now we're going to go into those things which necessitate ghusl. What makes ghusl necessary? Right. So ghusl, obviously, ghusl doesn't necessarily mean shower. Right. Shower, of course, we generally do. Yes, on a regular basis we shower. But ghusl is something which is something which it's a shari'i hukum. It's a shari'i ruling. It's a ruling which Sharia has prescribed to us, and so therefore we must perform it in the proper manner. So generally, when we shower, we should also do ghusl, which is basically just putting water into your mouth and putting water into your nostrils. That will fulfill the requisite of ghusl. But for example, especially people with longer hair, sometimes they don't want to wash their head or hair when they're showering. They don't want to do it all the time, right? For example, when I have longer hair, sometimes I don't wash my hair every day, right? But I take shower, right? So I wash the rest of my body. Many women do the same as well. So therefore, their shower may be done, but ghusl is not done. Understand? The difference is there. So now, what makes ghusl necessary? The first, inzalul mani ala wajhi dafaqi wa shahwati min al-rajuli wal mar'a. So just to keep it family friendly, if anyone ejaculates, that will make ghusl necessary. However that may be, whatever cause that may be, whether it's a person doing it by themselves, whether a person is doing it with someone else, whether someone is doing it with something else, with all the details of that, it's ghusl will be necessary. So anytime man or woman, if they ejaculate, if that happens, then ghusl is necessary. That's number one. The second is if husband and wife have relations. Husband and wife have relations, whether the man or woman ejaculates or not. Again, whether man or woman ejaculates or not, ghusl will be necessary simply by the action. Okay. Wal hayd, the third is having the menstrual cycle. Once the menstrual cycle is completed, then the woman must do ghusl. And when nifas and postpartum, once a woman goes through her nifas, after she gives birth and after that period where the recovery period, you can say, after that she will do ghusl, and that will it's necessary for her to do ghusl at that time. If you want details, inshallah, you can text me. I will send you details about these issues, inshallah. So now these are those things that make ghusl necessary. Now regarding the sunnahs of ghusl, wasanna Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam al-ghusla lil-jum'ah. When is a ghusl sunnah? 4 times. The first is for Jumu'ah, wal-Eidain. Second is for Eidain, for both Eid, wal-Ihram wa Arafah. Right? Third is for Ihram. When you're doing Ihram, it's sunnah to do ghusl. It's not necessary to do ghusl, but it's sunnah to do ghusl. And lastly, on the day of Arafah, it's also sunnah to do ghusl as well. So these are the 4 times that it's sunnah to do ghusl. The scholars, they go into a bit of detail. When on the day of Jumu'ah is it sunnah to do ghusl? Is it during the day, or is it during or in preparation for the salah? Right? So without going into detail, the scholars, they agree that it should be it's a sunnah of the salah itself, right? Because you're congregating with many others, therefore you should be in a hygienic state. You should be clean and fresh. So therefore, ghusl is a sunnah for the salat of Jumu'ah. right? Not the day of Jumu'ah, right? So those scholars who say that it is a sunnah of the day of Jumu'ah, they would say that even if you shower after the Salat of Jumu'ah, it's okay. Whereas the most correct opinion is that it's a sunnah of Jumu'ah, the Salat of Jumu'ah. And so therefore you must do it in preparation for the Salat of Jumu'ah. And last line, وَلَيْسَ فِي الْمَذِي وَالْوَدِي غُسْلٌ وَفِيهِمَا الْوُضُوء. He says that there's no ghusl in pre-ejaculation, pre-cum, right? Whereas you have wudu in them, but you don't have ghusl. There are many people, unfortunately, they have, for example, some people, not many people, some people, they have an issue where it comes out, without their control. And so therefore, that's a different scenario. But if someone is facing that issue, you can contact me separately, inshallah, and I will address that. But generally, there's no ghusl in that, but rather you have to clean that area and then you have to just do wudu. You have to repeat your wudu. Otherwise, it would be very difficult if you had to repeat your ghusl every single time. But this is everything related to ghusl. Any questions? Okay. 1 second. Yeah, alhamdulillah. Okay. Any questions? We'll finish off ghusl here. Yes. Yes.
Generally, when you go and take a shower, you think about it.
Yes.
And a few times, it's not going to be right. As long as you just do the mouth and the nostril.
Yes.
It's not really.
Yes. So generally, when we do, for example, when we go into the shower, generally our entire body is washed, right? But as I mentioned, if someone is, for example, wearing nail polish, or someone has like paint on their body or something, that would prevent the water from reaching their body. They must remove that first, and then they can do the ghusl. Also, according to us, it's not necessary, as I mentioned, to make the intention, right? So, for example, someone is thrown into a river, for example, someone jumps into a river, automatically, so long as they gargle and water, obviously water goes into the nostrils, automatically they have ghusl, okay, according to us. Other scholars say no, we say yes, that if someone falls into a river or something, then automatically they have ghusl. Also, according to us, we say that doing it one after the other is not necessary. Doing one thing after the other is not necessary. So, for example, someone washes half of their body, for example, and then they go, for example, they have to, they step out of the shower, for example, and then they come back and then they wash the rest of their body. That's okay, according to us. Or sometimes this happens very frequently. Someone washes the entire body, but they forget to gargle and put water into their nostrils. And then they dry up and everything, and they walk away. And then they remember, oh, I didn't gargle or put water in my nostrils. So you can come back, and without having to repeat the washing of your body, you can just put water in your mouth and nostrils, and that will suffice as your entire ghusl. So although your entire body is dry, there's no requirement of sequence. So you're not required to do things in order. And it doesn't matter whether some part of your body dries up or not. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, for Jumu'ah, I take shower and ghusl in the morning when I go for work. I pray Jumu'ah at work. I cannot take ghusl before Jumu'ah. Is that okay? Yeah, so basically, if you, again, showering for Jumu'ah, the sunnah is that you should shower for the salah. So if you shower and then go to work, for example, and you don't break your wudu, you don't break your ghusl until Jumu'ah happens, until the salat of Jumu'ah happens, then you get the reward of doing the ghusl for Jumu'ah. Does that make sense? Meaning that so long as you don't break your ghusl, it's okay. But once you do break your ghusl, then you'd have to repeat your ghusl for the salat of Jumu'ah. But otherwise, it's okay. Yeah, if you have wudu, then that's separate. You're missing out on the ghusl of Jumu'ah. Ghusl of Jumu'ah is for the salat of Jumu'ah. Okay.
Normally for the ghusl, is there any time that how many times you need to put the water in your nostril and the gargle?
No, there's no requirement of how many times you need to wash your body. One time is fard. So one time washing your entire body, one time gargling, one time putting water in your nostrils is fard, and then 3 times is sunnah. Besides that, there's no other requirement, or there's no. I mean, obviously, you should not waste water. You should not be stingy with water either. You should not use less water. In that case, maybe some part of your body may dry up or may not be washed, or nor should you be excessive or waste water. There's a hadith Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says that you should not waste water even if you're at a flowing river, which is amazing. It's an amazing hadith. Why? Because if you're at a river, I mean, there's no really concept of wasting water, right? I mean, but subhanallah, when you look at our faucets today, they're basically like a flowing river. I mean, if you think about it, the hadith Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they were very like, they had so much wisdom behind it. So it's possible Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam meant this, faucets, right? Where water is continuously flowing. And so therefore, when we are faucets or shower heads, whatever it may be, when we do ghusl, we should not waste too much water. We shouldn't spend, some people, they spend half an hour, 1 hour doing ghusl, they do all sorts of things in the ghusl. You should not do this, right? Instead, minimize the time. You shower, you get out. Ghusl lasts until you break it, right? The ghusl lasts until you break it. So basically, wudu can break, right? Your wudu can break, but ghusl will last until one of the 3 or 4 breakers of ghusl happen.
I mean, it can carry for
Yeah, it can carry for days. Yeah, so long as the 4 things that I mentioned does not happen, ghusl will continue, right? But your wudu will need to be repeated.
But it is sunnah to have ghusl during the Jummah.
Yes, yes, you should do. You should generally do. I mean, it's sunnah to do ghusl, especially maintaining your hygiene. This is something which is very important, right? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, "At-Taharah shatrul iman," that cleanliness is half of faith. So, for example, when the time comes that you're coming in congregation, for example, you're coming to the masjid for Maghrib, for example, right? And you know that you had a long day at work and you don't smell well. You should shower, you should clean up and then come to the masjid, right? Unfortunately, there are some people who habitually, they just smell bad, This is not good. We should try to do whatever is necessary to clean yourself, apply deodorant, apply cologne, whatever it is, but wash yourself regularly. There's one more thing I wanted to mention. Oh yes, many people, they have this misconception, and I get this question very often, that do you have to do wudu after you do ghusl, right? Many people, even I think on Friday I got this question also. So the answer is no. You do not need to make wudu separately after doing ghusl. Okay, once you do ghusl, automatically you have wudu, right? The process of wudu that we mentioned, that was only as a sunnah of ghusl. That was a sunnah of ghusl. It's not a requirement. So if you do ghusl, let's say you just jump into the shower and you wash your entire body, you gargle, you put water in your nostrils, your wudu is done as well. Your ghusl is done and your wudu is also done. Ghusl is the stronger form of cleansing your body and cleansing yourself. Okay, final question. Yes.
So following the sunnah of doing wudu before wudu, so you can skip masa, right? You can directly wash your face.
Good question. Scholars, they mentioned it. They discussed it, whether you should do masa or not. So some scholars, they say that you should do masa because you're still that's still an action of wudu. Whereas other scholars, they say that you should not do masa. So the most correct opinion is that you should do masa. You should do masa. Yeah, because that's an action of wudu, right? Wiping your head is an action of wudu. So because you're doing wudu before ghusl, so therefore you would also wipe your head, even though you're going to wash your head a few seconds later.
Wash your hands, water and make wudu. Then you wipe your hair all the roots. Then you pour the water 3 times in the bathroom and 3 times in the bathroom.
So that's sunnah. It's sunnah to begin your ghusl with the right hand or with the right side, but it's not necessary, right? So you don't need to. So for example, washing your hands, that's something recommended. That's good. Doing wudu, that's good, right? Starting from the right side, it's good, but it's not necessary. Meaning, it's not fard. The fara'id of ghusl are 3. Remember this very well, because believe me when I tell you, wallahi, believe me when I tell you, there are many people who don't know these 3 things. Very, very, very simple. But many people, unfortunately, they don't know this. And so, for example, let's say someone has relations with their spouse and then they move on. Let's say they wash their entire body, but they don't do ghusl, meaning washing their mouth and nostrils. And then they move on. They go, for example, they carry on, they do wudu, for example, for other salawat and so on. This happens, unfortunately. I know even, even students of knowledge, even like hifz students. That's why it's necessary also for those who are memorizing Quran to also learn fiqh as well. Right. So anyways, basically, we should all know this. We should also teach our family, our kids as well, inshallah. Right. That's it. If you have any other questions, inshallah, you can ask. You can text me, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairah. Subhanallah bihamdi, subhanakallahumma bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.